Good afternoon. My name is Laura Hope and I am an MTC student. On behalf of Dr. Rames and the entire Social and Behavioral Science Department, I would like to welcome each of you to the Shockproof webinar. During this session, we will uncover the realities of proper preparation of unexpected changes in the economy. The expert guest panelists will expound on how consumers and producers can make changes now that can put them in a position to survive economic contractions. Due to the fact that this is a webinar setting, students will only have the ability to type in questions using the chat feature. Please be mindful to follow proper MTC protocol in this virtual platform by being respectful to the panelists and others that are attending this webinar. We will attempt to address as many questions as possible during the session. I will now turn over the session to our moderator, Ms. Norris.
Thank you, Laura, for such a warm welcome. As Laura stated, my name is Leah Norris, and I serve as the Page Program Director within Social and Behavioral Sciences. I also serve as one of the economic instructors here at MTC. We have an exciting and informative session today. As a reminder, you can post your questions in the chat, and time permitting, we will address as many as possible. I'm elated to work with all of the experts on our panel today. Our panelists include Jay Brown, who is a financial advisor at Cornerstone Financial Management. Deltrice Hart Anderson, she is an IRS enrolled agent and tax strategist at D Hart Accounting. We also have Mary Ann Kraft. She is the vice president within small business banker at Bank of America. We also have representing parts of the governmental sector, Melissa Lindler. She is the director of the Office of Business Opportunities within the City of Columbia. Last but not least, we have Wendy Phillips. She is a consumer banker at Bank of America. Thank you to our panelists for setting aside your time to share with our students all of what they can learn about being shockproof on today. So before we get into the actual questions, I wanted to present some statistics about the financial sector. Last year, we experienced unprecedented changes in our economy. The record-breaking economic expansion that lasted 113 months came to a sudden halt after COVID-19 uprooted the normal economic operations. In April of 2020, it was reported by Brookings that the U.S. experienced a loss of 20.5 million jobs. Because of the sudden decline in sales, small businesses experienced an average of 20% declines in revenues during the earlier part of 2020. Some businesses even had to close because of the impact of the pandemic. For consumers, 49% of the workers who lost wages during the pandemic state that they are still earning less than what they were before the crisis. This makes it quite difficult for many to save. Prior to the pandemic, studies show that 29% of adults overall are not usually able to put away money in savings. All of the statistics aren't so bleak. According to the Pew Research, 36% of adults with a bachelor's degree or higher say that they're in a more financial lucrative situation than they were prior to the pandemic. As we can see from this research, so many households and businesses can benefit from becoming more strategic in their finances. So let's hear from the experts. Finances are always a concern during an economic downturn. What are some of the top two missteps that consumers and businesses make during times of prosperity? Let's start with Wendy. What insight can you provide us on this aspect?
Yes, so first, again, thank you so much for letting us speak. I really appreciate meeting with you guys. And the two biggest missteps, I would say, for both the consumers and businesses, and it's probably not something that's going to surprise anybody, but I think two of the things we do is we spend too much and we save too little, right? I mean, that's just the general way a lot of people are. And it really came to fruition and came to light, and it really affected a lot of people when COVID hit and things started closing down and all, and so saying, hey, we spend too much and we save too little, now we can't go back in hindsight and change things, but there are things that we can do now that we are in the situation that we're in. Yesterday, I was hanging out on my back porch watching the squirrels go through my backyard. And there are nuts everywhere right now. There's a nut for every squirrel out there. There's 1,000 of them, but you don't see them not collecting them, right? They're still collecting them, even though they're everywhere to be found. So we need to save. We need to find ways to bring money into our wheelhouse, and then we need to do our best to save that money. Just like a squirrel or something like that, whenever it sees everything out there, you still have to you don't think about it as a time of feast. You live life as if you're in the family, right? So you live life as if you are not in the time of prosperity, so that when things are good and things are bad, you're kind of riding somewhere in the middle, right? So not overspending is a big thing. And then saving is another aspect of it, right? If you came into pre-COVID, if you were saving money, then you probably had at least a week or 2 or 3, that you were able to get by. But if you didn't have that long 6-month, 3-month, 6-month savings, then you probably were experiencing some difficulty that you wouldn't have experienced had you had that savings. I will tell you that right now, even though it seems very hard to save during these times, I've met with some college students last week and I challenged them on this. The first thing is, when you graduate college, your first year out of college, I challenge everyone to still live like they're in college. We all know what that means, to live like we're in college. That means we're not splurging, right? We might be eating beanies and weenies or whatever we need to eat, but we're not overextending ourselves, right? So be cautious of where you spend your money. And that first year out of college, go ahead and build your 6 months savings. And then you're done with it, right? Build your emergency savings. Your 401k, every time you get a raise as you're working, every time you get a raise, let's say this coming up year, you get a 2% raise. Throw that 2% in your 401k. That 2% is not going to do very much for you over the course of this next year. A 2% raise is going to maybe get you an extra cup of coffee a week. But adding 2% to your 401k is going to really drastically help you in the future, right? So adding money as any way you can through, contributions to your 401k, living under your means, and preparing as if the sky is falling, right? So make sure you got good credit. If you don't, go ahead and start making sure you have good credit. So when something bad happens, you have your credit history to fall back on if you need help. Start stashing money away for when you need it. Think about, do I really need to buy this, or do I really need to save this money right now? And I know that's very easy for us to say, whenever, look, I'm a shopper. I love to shop. I love to spend money, but you have to figure out a way to stem the flow so that you've got enough whenever things turn down.
Excellent points. Did any other panelists want to chime in on that question too?
I would, and excellent points, Wendy. And thank you once again, Ms. Norris, for the opportunity to be here. Just to piggyback on a lot of the things that Wendy said, yes, the spending too much, the saving too little, but also as far as the challenge when it comes to students. In most cases, students will live with their parents or they have roommates. I would add to that, not only spend less, but when you get your first real job, your first full-time job, if you still have a roommate or if you're still staying with parents, you really could save 50% of your income. So my suggestion, my challenge would be to save 50% of your income. If the job that you have has a retirement account, max out that retirement, whatever that max is, max it out. So that, and if there's a match, especially just max it out. So if your company is going to match 5% or 6%, you make sure you at least contribute 5 or 6% yourself. save 50%. You're not going to miss it. I promise you, you're not going to miss it because your expenses are so little. And as you age, as you get families, some of you may have families now, but as your families grow, you may have additional expenses. So you may have college, you might find yourself caring for elderly parents. So now you have this huge cushion that you never did touch. And every job that you get, 9 times out of 10, your income will increase. If you start saving 50% of each job that you get, so you live on less, like Wendy said, um, don't spend as much as you make. So if you live on less, you can, regardless to how much money you make, you can save 50%. And there might be times where, you know, a paycheck or a month or two you have to do differently, but hop back on the bandwagon and save that money. And you would be amazed. You could retire whenever you wanted, you could retire early. And another thing, I had to write my notes so I wouldn't forget. Oh, lastly, work as much as you can. So that means earn as much income as you can, whether it's you have a full time job and a part time job, whether you have a side hustle, whatever it is, earn as much as you can during those feast times.
Awesome. And we're hearing a lot of repeated things, save, save, save. Any others that wanted to chime in on that first question?
Sure. This is Melissa. Great job, Wendy and Deltrice. You actually stole exactly what I was going to say. But yeah, the failure to save, you have to save. But I think for our business community, what we found, a lot of them had savings for 3, 6 months. So I would suggest that you try to save for at least a year, if not more. If you're a small business, try to save for at least a year. The other thing is to have a plan, but also have action steps that go with that plan. And I will say with the restaurant industry, for instance, a lot of them depended on in-house dining, but you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan and something that you can immediately implement, go to, so you don't miss a beat. And I think consumers are the same way. So planning is necessary. 3 to 6 months is great, but if you can at least save for a year, that's even better. Illnesses happen, you get sick, you may have to help a parent, a relative. We've all been there. And those are just the realities of today. So if you can plan for a year, if it's practical, it's doable, especially if you're living at home with your parents, you can do it. But at least a year and have a plan in place with action steps that you can implement immediately. Thank you.
Awesome input. Any last ones, Marianne?
Yes, I would like to add to that. I agree with you 100% what everybody's saying here today. Just like Wendy was talking about individuals, a business is no different. You just have to be prepared even more so. Just like she was just saying a minute ago, you need a year or more and preparing for the unexpected. I think a lot of business owners weren't, no one was prepared for this. I mean, we can all say over a year ago, would you have ever thought COVID would hit? I know I wouldn't, thinking back on it. And you just have to be over prepared, save, and have credit, a line of credit in your back pocket, just in case you need it, in case you deplete through that year. And just like the retail sector, be prepared to go online, ordering delivery. I've even seen local business owners. I know the restaurants weren't delivering in the past, and I'm seeing them deliver now. So you have to evolve and adapt to this change. And the ones that have done quite well through this. I think the hardest part is going to be coming out of it. We've gotten used to the new norm.
Absolutely. And you all addressed some great points. And I was just thinking about some conversations I had with my students where when we study supply and demand, one of the things we always mention is that that producers always think that business will remain as is. But we never know how consumer tastes may change, how the dynamics in government may impact business, or how even a pandemic could actually uproot the normal operations of our business. So, from both a consumer standpoint and a business standpoint, you have some similar themes that are woven within what you all mentioned. So, thank you for that first question. We're off to a great start, and so we're going to continue the conversation dealing with some practical steps. So, I want to ask Jay if he'll start the conversation with what are some practical spending and saving tactics that particularly college students can implement now to be in a better financial position in the future.
Sure. Thanks, Leah, and thank you all for having me. Can't express my appreciation to be a part of this. Do things like this at other colleges or high schools from time to time, and it's always a joy to learn from the other panelists and to be able to help you guys. So for the question specifically, I'm going to give you a few general things, and then like Leah said, some practical stuff. So the two words that I'm going to start off with is deferred gratification and discipline. Deferred gratification, you've heard from the panelists already, saving now, allowing your money to work for you later, and then the discipline to do that. It's easy when you get your paycheck to go and spend that money and then see what happens. And where it's such a right now society where you can order something from halfway across the world on your phone in less than 30 seconds. And so having that discipline to be able to budget, to be able to put that money away, to have that deferred gratification, that if there's some radio media folks that have a saying that live like no one else right now, so later you can live like no one else. And you've probably heard people in finance mention those types of phrases. And so deferred gratification and discipline. We're going to give you some tips today. The one thing that I always tell whoever to, if you don't remember another thing, to accumulate wealth long term, ultimately, if you can spend less than you bring in and put the difference towards some sort of an investment, towards some sort of saving strategy, you're going to be okay. I think too many times we get caught up trying to keep up with the Joneses, and we see what everybody else is buying. We see what everybody else is doing with their money, and we want to keep up with that. But if you can just remember to spend less than you bring in and invest that, to save that, to look for some sort of growth, to let your money work for you. Those are some general ideas. A couple of practical things. The first thing, and it kind of goes along again with what our panelists have said, but some sort of budgeting. Some people love the line item zero-based budgeting. Some people hate it. For those of you that don't like to line item everything out, I advise clients to use what I call scarcity budgeting, meaning that if you bring in $5,000 in 1 month, then allocate all of your expenses at the beginning of the month. Automate your payments to mortgages, to bills, to yourself. And then after everything has been accounted for, what you have left is what you're going to spend your money on for the rest of the month. And if on March 27th, if you've only got $100 left out of this, what I have left, then you've got to figure out how to make the last 4 days on $100 work. So it creates a scarce situation. And so if you don't like the line item, cash allocation for every single thing that you do in the month, try a scarcity budgeting technique. A couple other things. I mentioned it, pay yourself first. I would automate a line item in your automatic bank drafts to go toward savings, to go toward retirement accounts, to go toward something at the beginning of the month. Because if you wait and say, at the end of the month, with whatever I have left, I'm going to put it toward my savings, that's not going to happen. That money's going to go away, and you're going to run out of money before the end of the month. If you do get credit cards, like Wendy was saying, pay them off every month. Use them for something specific, gas, grocery, something that you know about what that cost is going to be. Pay them off at the end of the month. Don't allow that consumer debt to linger for months and years, and you could be paying for a steak dinner from Ruth's Chris 2 years from now with some of that interest. Last thing, and this gets a little bit more into the specifics, but a Roth IRA is a great saving strategy right now, especially for our younger people. You can put up to $6,000 into a Roth IRA. It's a retirement account if you have an earned income, and that money grows tax-free forever. Now, there are restrictions in a retirement account. You can't access that growth before 59.5. But the general thing that I want to say with the Roth IRA is the earlier the better, and it's tax-free growth. So I'm going to leave that question alone and let the other panelists chime in. Thanks, Leah.
You're welcome. Any others on that one? And I'm not sure if Wendy was trying to chime in. Make sure you turn your mic off. There on. Thank you.
I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. So I just wanted to follow up on that now. When developing a budget, because I do think that is key. And when I first came out of college, I always say I'm a good banker because I was a terrible customer. I did not have a budget, right? I didn't know how to set up a budget. I didn't know what all my expenses were. So a part of budgeting is figuring out what am I spending my money on every month? And then determining, do I need to spend all of that on all of those different line items? So when I first came out of college, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I had a very simple, because I am very simplistic, I got paid twice a month. I had a first paycheck and a second paycheck. And I literally would go in here. Now, I came from a background of coming out of college with a lot of debt, right? So I didn't have much expendable, but I took what I had. I knew that I needed $100 out of each pay to live on. So kind of going back to your point about, the zeroing out the budget, I knew what I needed to live on. And I made sure out of every single paycheck that I got, I knew what was going to be allocated from paycheck 1 and what was going to be allocated from paycheck 2. My point being, don't wait until the bill shows up before you decide to pay it. All your bills may show up at the end of the month, but you've already spent your first paycheck, and your end of the month paycheck isn't going to last to pay everything, right? So you got to know what you owe, and then you have to strategically figure out, when am I going to pay for this, and pay for it based on when you got the money. Just because it's due at the end of the month doesn't mean you don't pay it at the beginning of the month. Pay it so you're done. Then you know exactly what it is that you're working with. Another suggestion that I have for people is, and I do it here at the bank all the time, know your own personal limitations. Like I said, I know I'm a shopper. I've got to be careful with that, and I've got to watch it. So one of the things that I do, I've got a bank account, my savings account here at Bank of America. I cannot access it. It is hidden from me. The only way I can get that money is by walking into the bank. Like that helps. I can't do it online. I can't just transfer it from my phone. It's not that instant gratification, right? It's, say, if I can wait a day, do I really still need the money? Do I still really want to buy that item? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, I can probably wait.
Excellent points. And I know I do that with my banks too. I have my savings account where I literally have to go in to have any transactions. So we're going to move forward. We're going to kind of flip back to looking at business owners. I have such a privilege of serving as an instructor for many aspiring entrepreneurs. And so I wanted to kind of give them some tips as far as the financial setups for that. So Marianne, would you kind of address some vital fitness steps for emerging business owners?
And yes, and mostly for startups is what you'd like to talk about. So getting together a business plan, and especially when you're looking at a territory wherever you plan to live, whether it's right out of college, really look at the demographic. You need to look at, whatever business it may be, and be prepared. Look at the competition. You need to see who is in that marketplace before entering. Are you going to saturate this market? Because I do see this quite a bit where somebody has an idea, but you're number 3 or 4 in line. If you're the first one in line, it's always the first one everybody on the marketplace remembers. And you can grow from there. But being prepared, do a business plan. There's so many resources here in Columbia. We have SCORE, you can talk with them, SBA as well. You know, just basically do your homework to get ready. You want to be prepared and plan and have a lot of money saved and be prepared for the unexpected, because you're going to have some working capital. You may need to live at home for a while or work out of your garage. Don't go rent space. If you can hold back from that. Some of my most successful business owners in this area started in their garage. They were in their garage for 2-3 years. And then now they have a huge space. So it's just a matter of timing and growth. And when you're ready to take that next step, to take on that large loan.
Awesome input. Any others on that particular question?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I'm sorry, Deltrice. Sure. I won't be long. I would just add to that. The research is key. Research is key. You have to know your market. You also have to know the business that you're going into, and you have to know who your competitors are. A lot of times we have this great idea and we want to put it in this perfect spot. At least that's the perfect spot we think it should be located in. And you may not need a spot at all. So again, just do your research. Please do your research. That's key. Not only on the business that you're in, but also the market and the demographics of your customer base.
I would say before you start your business, run the business on paper. So pretend you have all of these expenses. Pretend, let's just say if you are a business that you can't just run out of your home, or it can't be a virtual business. Let's say it's a bakery. Let's say it's a bike shop, whatever it is. Pretend that you're running that business. So you try to save up from there. So a lot of times small businesses can't get funding because they don't have the credit or they don't have their new businesses. So run your business on paper and look at how much is it will I have to pay for rent? How much will I have to pay for utilities? How much will I have to pay for employees? And look at those amounts and try to save up those amounts for a 6-month or up to a year time period before you even start. So you might have to self fund your business just in case, right? And then also, if you have that business, that money saved up, banks will look at you differently, because banks are like, they take you seriously because you've already started that fund for yourself. They may even lend you more money. Also, when it comes to the budgeting for a small business owner, lots of times we as small business owners, and this is for my business as well, I can predict for the most part based on my recurring services what income I'll have from week to week, month to month. But for my non-recurring revenue, I don't know what that money is going to look like. I can assume based off of the referrals that I receive, based off of the advertising that I do, but it's not certain. So when you are budgeting for that type of business where it's unpredictable income, you can't say, okay, like with a job, you're going to get a set amount each pay period. So instead of saying, I'm going to spend X, Y, and Z and, first week, second week, third week, you have to budget based off of percentages. So you say, whatever income comes in, I'm going to spend X percentage on bills. I'm going to save X percentage. So that those are my only two, I think. Yeah, because the others were taken.
All right, we had some great input from those. And again, we're still seeing a continued pattern of how vital savings is on the business front, in even in the emerging part of that particular business as well. And so, Deltrice, I kind of want you to as well start us out with this particular aspect of our conversation. What steps should consumers and businesses take when there are unexpected negative changes in the economy?
So you definitely want to be flexible. You want to be able to pivot when you can. And I'll give you an example for my business. we were doing remote stuff before COVID happened. So everyone knows about Zoom right now. But in 2015, no one really knew about Zoom. But we were doing Zoom all along. Now, we received a lot of pushback because most of our clients wanted to come inside of our office. They wanted to see us face to face. Now they are so happy for Zoom because guess what? I'm not opening my doors. We're partially open. You can drop off stuff, but we just can't sit face to face right now. Our office is too small. We only have 1,500 square feet, and it's just not enough space for us to feel comfortable right now letting people through the door. But my clients had to pivot, and I had to pivot, and I had to accept I may lose clients as a result. So you have to think about it's all back to the savings. You have to think about what ifs. Okay. So, what would happen if I could not serve my clients? Technology is key. Make sure you have in a business the best technology there is or that you can get. So Zoom, of course, is inexpensive, but have the technology be very flexible and listen to your clients. Listen to what they have to say, your clients, your customers, just whether it's you asking them, providing surveys, when you talk to your customers or clients, just ask them certain questions, but be in a position to pivot, be flexible, and utilize the technology.
Awesome. Were there any other panelists that wanted to chime in on that question? Okay. Well, I wanted to focus in on government. A lot of times when we're in conversation about personal finances and even the stability of businesses, many people don't think about the role of government in this conversation. So, Melissa, will you address why business stability is such an important focus for local administration? Make sure you turn your mic on.
Thank you. There are a number of different services that your local government provides to you. And in order to provide those services, we need some sort of revenue that comes in to help support our budget. So the roads need to be repaired. We have water and sewer infrastructure that needs to be maintained. We have emergency services that need to be provided. We have law enforcement officers that need to be paid for. So we want our local economy to be stable, which means we want our local businesses to be stable because we're depending on those local businesses for revenue and sales tax that we charge those businesses, right? Your business licensing is based on how much you generate in revenue. So we want those businesses to be stable because we know that those businesses are job creators and those employees are spending money within our local economy. So not only are you providing job opportunities for the community, but you're also providing customers for other small businesses. So again, we want you to be stable. We also know that 99% of all employers are small businesses. So our small businesses are really who we depend on because you're you're the backbone of our local economy. I know you heard the mayor say that, you heard the city manager say that, but it's true because you're creating jobs, you're providing innovative opportunities for individuals, you're creating different products. You're also creating incentives for people to come into the area to purchase your products and services. So again, you're helping us by, making sure our local economy stays afloat, but we definitely want you to be stable because we're depending on your revenue. So we can charge you to help us provide those goods and services. So it's like a circle. It just goes around in a circle. So we're very dependent on that. There was one more thing I wanted to say too. Also, yes. These our small businesses also provide support to our larger businesses. So everybody's connected. Small businesses need accountants, right? So we want you to be stable so you can not only provide services to your customers, but also so that you can help other businesses stay afloat as well. Excuse me. Thank you.
Awesome. And so, as I tell my students all the time, when we study the circular flow, we can't study one area of the economy without really looking at the bird's eye picture. So when there's something in government that's changing, when there's something, even if we never purchase it from one particular industry, if that industry collapses, it's going to somehow impact us on the consumer end ultimately. And so these are some themes that we talk about a great deal within economics, and now we can see the pages of the textbook coming to life in this conversation when we see, how vital all of these aspects are as well. So, in various conversations that I've had with students, many of them are talking about the stimulus package, and even the ones that we've had last year as well. So, Wendy, can you start the conversation with some smart usage for those funds from the stimulus package?
Absolutely. And I'm going to speak to this from the consumer side. Mary Ann, who's on the call today, is my personal small business banker here at Bank of America. So she helps all of my small business customers navigate with the new PPP loans and all. But I'll say from a consumer perspective, a lot of us are getting stimulus checks in, from the government. We've got a lot of people in the branches cashing those, depositing those into their account. So I'm seeing some very good trends with how people are using their money in a very positive way. Some of it, some people are very lucky in that they're still currently working. So this is kind of just a little extra bump. And when we get those extra bumps, we need to sit back and take a minute and figure out, how is this going to help me in the long run? Now, again, I'm a shopper. I would love to go out and spend all the money I'm going to get at the mall. I even got my store picked out. I know where I want to go. That is not what we need to do, though. We've been talking a lot about savings. Probably a lot of us have depleted our savings. So we need to use this money to build back our reserves, right? So all this money you've been taking out because maybe you haven't had the income, use this to replenish the reserves. If you have extra, also use it to pay a bill ahead, right? No one's going to not take your money, right? So if you want to set yourself up for success, you want to have a little extra change in your pocket, but not all at one time, pay your phone bill a month in advance. Pay your car payment, get a month or two. So if something bad happens, you've used this money to catch yourself up or even further yourself. Excuse me. And finally, I would say, if you look at the interest rate on debt now, interest rates are going to be somewhere between on a 15 and 26% interest APR. Use this money to pay off that debt. Okay, if something is sitting out there with a 26% interest rate, I would rather see you get that paid off first and take a little bit and put it in a savings, because your savings, you may get maybe 1% interest if we're lucky, but we're paying out 26% interest on a credit card. So clean up and pay off as much debt as you possibly can with this money. All of this again, so that we're replenishing our reserves and setting ourselves back up for success. So and for the next emergency, because if there's one thing we all know about life is it's ever changing, and there may not be a crisis of this magnitude, but there will be something, whether it's in our own personal lives or whether it's in the national or international economy. Something will come up and we will get a little bit behind. So use this money to build those reserves back up, pay things off, establish or rebuild your credit. If that's something that is negatively impacting you, use this money to rebuild your credit, to get a secure card, to help put you back in a positive light with the credit bureaus. Everything so that you're elevating yourself, so that when something happens, if we have to take a hit, we're not taking as quite as much of a hit as we did on this first go round.
Thank you, Wendy, for chiming in on that one. Any other panelists for that question? Okay. Jay, I know that you've have a lot of experience working with college students and even high school students speaking on financial strategies. So again, we're right on the cusp of getting ready to see some students finish their education here at MTC. What are some consumer spending tips that are essential for new college graduates?
Sure, thanks. One thing, and I know we talked on the budgets and everything, but one of the biggest and maybe most simple things you could do is track where your money's going. So whether that's an actual budget, I know there's hundreds of apps out there that you can link to your debit cards, and you link to all kinds of financial institutions, and they can literally tell you where you're spending your money. So it may be an online app, and maybe something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet that you keep. I personally like the Excel spreadsheet because I actually go in there and put it in myself. And there's something about doing it yourself that it's not automated, that you actually feel the money leaving your account kind of situation. Some kind of simple things. When you go to the grocery store, have a list. Don't go when you're hungry. Have a list of what you eat. That I know that sounds simple, but I mean it's practical. Some of you may think that carrying cash is for 25 years ago, but carry cash. I've been on a cruise before. Some of you may have been on a cruise, and when your room key is also your debit card, it's a lot easier to spend that money. But if you've got cash in your pocket, then to me, it's a lot harder to spend that money. So maybe carrying cash is something that, assuming that some of these businesses take cash, I know that was a little bit of a freeze on that. I think some of our panelists have said this, but leave a credit card at home. Have some sort of a security or safeguard before you can use money. So you have to go to the bank to take money out. You have to leave your credit card at home. So if you're out and about and want to make a quick spur of the moment decision to buy something, you literally have to drive home, get your credit card, and drive back to that place. A lot of times that added inconvenience will probably stop that behavior. Let's see, comparison shop. There is a grocery store on every corner, and there may be some items that not just grocery store, but any type of store. We live in a very diverse community from a business standpoint, and the chances are that a competitor is not far away. So just because something is one price here doesn't mean that that's the same price somewhere else. What can you live without? We all love Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and you name it, but in the big scheme of things, all of that is above and beyond. It isn't something that we necessarily have to have. And so think about what you can live without. Think about where you can cut your savings, assuming you cut your spending. But yeah, those are just a few things that I kind of jotted down, and I'm sure there's others out there, but just a good starting point. Thanks.
Awesome, Jay. Any others that wanted to provide their expertise as well? No? I can definitely identify with some of the points that Jay mentioned, because I actually cut my cable this year, just thinking, do I really use it? And even I think that's one of the challenges with the pandemic. Yes, many people weren't going to the movies as much, but then they were increasing a lot of their streaming services. So whereas they felt they were saving money, ultimately they were probably spending as much, if not more, because they were adding on other services. So, and even too, just pointing back to your other point about being intentional about your spending is really important. I've emphasized that in a lot of my classes, and some of my students that are here, you're probably hearing some themes that we talked about with behavioral economics, not falling into those traps and really being strategic and thinking about your future self and seeing how that decision is going to impact you. Okay. All right, so we're going to move along. We're right in the peak of tax preparation season. So I wanted Deltrice to kind of expound on what are the advantages of working with a tax representative throughout the year for personal and business purposes. Will you start us out with that conversation?
Absolutely. So when you work with a tax professional, and make sure whatever you do, I always tell people, work with someone that has something to lose. And when I say that, work with someone that's licensed. So whether it is a licensed IRS enrolled agent, whether it's a CPA, whether it's a tax attorney, You want to work with someone with some experience and something to lose. If I do something if I prepare a tax return, if I represent someone before the IRS or any of the states, and I make a mistake, I have something to lose. I could lose my license. Um, versus someone else that is unlicensed or not certified. They don't have much to lose. They could just set up shop someplace else. So that's one advantage that you have when you work with a professional. They're going to take, in most cases, not saying that unenrolled preparers don't, but in most cases, they're going to take special care of you because they have something to lose. Another thing is that licensed professionals have a requirement, an education requirement. So that education requirement, they always have to take the latest updates, whether it's the tax prep updates or tax planning updates or tax resolution updates. We have to get those updates, right? So working with a professional will allow you to get that transfer of knowledge. So it's not just, and some people, let me just say, it's fine if you have a W 2 or a couple of W 2s and um, you're making, I would say, $50,000 or less, you're probably okay. You can go to TurboTax, Tax Act, H&R Block online and prepare your taxes, no big deal. But when it comes to tax planning, and tax planning is going to involve, okay, if I do this, if so with Jay said, uh, make Roth IRA contributions. If I make a Roth IRA contribution versus a traditional IRA contribution, now what? What effect does that have on my taxes, right? So you want to be able to have conversations once you get to that point that you need a professional. You want to be able to have conversations with the professional about the outcomes, minimizing your tax liability. And not just for 1 year, but for future years. A lot of times, tax professionals will work with financial advisors because it's a collaborative effort. So you want to make sure and find a professional that will be able to assist you, not just to record history, because that's what preparing a tax return is, just recording history. You want to be able to work with professionals that understand how to get you to the point where you know history before it happens. And that could be with a business or with individuals.
Absolutely. Any others that want to chime in on that particular question?
I will, and I can't echo what Deltree said enough about working with a tax preparer. I cannot tell you how many times with a client, we've called upon a tax preparer to evaluate a certain situation because I'm not licensed as a tax preparer. I don't want to be licensed as a tax preparer. I want nothing to do with it. I have a very general tax knowledge, but by law, I cannot provide anything specific when it comes to tax advice. And so when I have the ability with a client to consult with a tax preparer, it is beyond beyond great service opportunity for the client to run ideas through both parties. Whenever a client does their own taxes, it makes some tax decisions difficult, to simplify it. So yeah, I can't stress enough working with a tax professional.
Absolutely. And I know that many of the students here, especially as they start their careers or even become entrepreneurs, a lot of the changes in their finances, it can really change, of course, how much taxes are levied on their particular incomes. So it's really important to know in the beginning of the year or even mid-year what you may anticipate so that you can go ahead and set aside whatever monies or change your strategy during that second half of the year so nothing will catch you off guard as far as taxes are concerned. So it's super important. All right, we're
I
going
had
to
one more thing. I'm
oh,
so
go
sorry.
ahead. Mhm.
There was one other advantage that I keep forgetting. A lot of times when you prepare your taxes yourself, because this happens especially during the summertime, if there have been people that try to prepare their individual or business taxes on their own, they end up with these nasty grams from the IRS. So you are putting yourself in jeopardy of getting these letters, and you have not only potentially given the IRS either too much money, or you've made a mistake and it's going to cost you even more money. And it won't just cost you the money as the tax liability. Now you have penalties and interest on top of that. And potentially you're on the IRS's radar and nobody wants to be there.
Absolutely. And we can definitely benefit from that information that you all shared, which is so timely, especially since we're around tax season as well. We're going to continue looking into the business sector. So I wanted Marianne to provide some insight on what resources are business owners failing to capitalize on with their local banker or financial strategist.
Yes, and I know Deltresa, she touched on this a little bit, because your first 2 years being in business, it at times can be challenging because you go to the bank and you're unable to get financing. So you really want to prepare and save for the cycle of the business and the highs and the lows, and do your homework, just like everybody said, and be prepared and plan and be ready. Definitely talk to your banker. I've had a lot of younger entrepreneurs. They got a very high interest rate loan through whether it's a franchise or whatnot, and they were scared to talk to me or any other bank for that matter. They were just afraid of the banker. They've been in business over 2 years. And to give you an example, I just had someone several years ago I was talking to. I was like, we can do so much better for you as a bank. So after you're on to that, after the second year, we can take that and refinance that debt. And I think he was amazed. He went from a 9% interest down to a 4% with Bank of America. So that's just, don't be scared of it. Get to know your banker. Tell them what you're doing. Don't be afraid. And also plan, because you got to get together with your CPA and plan. You have to sometimes pay taxes in order to get a loan. And I have a lot of clients that will do everything they can to avoid paying taxes and having a net income at the bottom. They want to show a net loss. But when you go to the bank to get a loan and you're going to buy that building, you have to have a net income or a lot of interest and depreciation to add back in. So definitely talk with your banker, talk to your CPA, tell them what you're planning in the next year, because you want to prepare so that way you can cash flow. Because most banks today go based on cash flow when they're going to do a loan and credit. You have to have very good credit to get that working capital that you're looking for to expand your business and to make more money and keep growing. So definitely get to know your banker. Also, in these times, there's a lot of digital technology out there. You don't have to go wait in line at the bank. You can do a mobile deposit. There's so many things that you could be discussing. A lot of people didn't realize you can Zelle your clients. Basically, you're Zelling, asking them to pay you, and they can pay you via Zelle, which is entirely complimentary. There's no payment for that. So there's so many digital solutions that are out there. So talk to your banker. The 4 things that I can give anybody going into business: know your banker, talk to them, have your CPA, talk to them about what you're doing, get a good lawyer, financial advisor. And if you're buying a business, get a CPA that can evaluate the business before buying it to get a true valuation of what you're about to purchase. So definitely use this as a resource, even if you aren't going to work with us. So that's what we're here for, to help you grow and help you during the time of challenges to make things easier.
Absolutely. Any others that want to chime in on that pertaining to our business owners?
I have a personal story that speaks to what Marianne was saying. When I first bought my building back in 2015, my interest rate was 8.5%. And I was able to refinance recently that building to 3.25%. But it was because I have a great banking relationship. I had a really, and here's the thing, the bank that I actually ended up with wasn't my current bank, but I kept the relationship and just and you're right, it comes down to credit. So at in 2015, my credit was barely it was maybe 675, I think, but I got a loan. And I was like, I was wondering, how did I have a 675? I think it was 675, 685, something like that. How did I have such a credit score? I didn't know how. I was never late. The problem was I didn't have enough credit, but it took a banker to explain that to me. You don't have enough credit. And I just didn't. I had my mortgage and that was it, my home mortgage, and that was it. Well, that didn't. So I had to create a, I had to build up my credit in order to get my 3.25% loan. So yeah, that Marianne, you're right. But without those relationships, without asking questions, don't be afraid to ask any questions. Hey, this is how much money I got. This is my credit score. What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong with me that I can't get a lower score. And the thing about it was that was my second building, because the first building that I purchased early 2000s, I had no problems. But I had a whole lot of credit cards. I had more stuff, but as I started to pay down things, then I wasn't utilizing my credit as much. So let a banker help you. They were very helpful to me.
Absolutely. And what we can see from that is, networking is important. And many of my students that are attending this panel, we talked about networking in our classrooms and in our discussions and how that is so important. And so look towards the experts. They can help you on this journey. You're not facing this alone, whether it's in your personal finances or in your entrepreneurship venture. So these are some things to keep in mind. We have time for one more question, and I really wanted to highlight the city, because a lot of times people don't realize what resources are available, as they're, thinking about starting a business or even just trying to develop a plan or even in the starting stages. So, Melissa, I wanted you to focus in on what opportunities and resources exist for the business community through the city of Columbia, because we'll see some similarities even outside of that region that are available as well.
That's exactly right. The City of Columbia, we have a number of different resources for our small business community. Many are housed actually within the Office of Business Opportunities, although we focus mainly, or we target mainly our minority and women-owned businesses, and we support those initiatives and programs that support that demographic. However, our services are open to every and anyone. We have a number of different commercial revolving loan fund products that are available to you at very low interest rates. Many times the parameters for our lending is less stringent in terms of credit scores, because we're trying to work with our disadvantaged community and make sure they have access to different resources that they normally do not have access to. So capital tends to be something that our disadvantaged businesses, our minority and women-owned businesses tend not to be able to access. So we try to make those steps easier through our office. So we do have a number of different commercial revolving loan funds that are available up to $200,000. We do look at your credit history. We look at other things other than just credit score, but we certainly look at your ability to pay the money back. So Marianne, I think she mentioned this. Everyone's trying to make sure they don't have to pay taxes, but it can hurt you when you're trying to secure funding for your business. So be honest, be forthcoming, and always, always be transparent in your financing. It can only hurt you if you do not do that. We also have some commercial retention and redevelopment programs offered through the City of Columbia to improve the exterior of buildings of businesses as well as the interior of businesses. And those are forgivable loans that the city has for our small business community. Right now, we're in the Five Points area. So we go across the city, we take this program, trying to make sure that we're providing and revitalizing our community through helping our small businesses with their different exterior and interior improvements. We also have a number of trainings and technical assistance that we offer free of charge to our small business community. You do not have to be a resident of the city of Columbia to access our resources or our training. We will help you with your business plans, and we will help you identify funding. We also can help you connect with a lending institution. We have a number of different financial partners that we work with. Some are on the call right now that we refer you to, that we can actually either partner with them to provide funding to you, or maybe it's something that's different, it's outside of our purview, but they can actually do it. So we help you with building that relationship with different financial partners. We also help you put together your financing packages if you need that assistance, so that you can actually go to a lender. We'll look at that for you. We also work with the Small Business Administration. We work with the South Carolina Small Business Development Center, which is another free resource that's right here in Columbia, and it's available to you at no charge. And then there's a Women's Business Center at Benedict College that's free, that you can also access their services at no charge. So we're here. We want to make sure our small business community is strong and thriving. And if you would like more information about our services or how to connect with us, I'm certainly know that Ms. Norris will get that information to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned the Small Business Association, because that's really, really critical. And they don't realize how it can help them walk through those steps of really bringing their business to life. So we're out of time. We could continue this conversation all day, but I really, really want to thank all of our panelists who provided such great insight on today. And I'm sure that I'm going to hear some great feedback from today's event. So again, thank you for all of those that attended the live session, and thank you for those of you that are watching the recording as well. I also want to encourage you to check out any of our other SBS Week activities. We have some great things happening again tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week, because we're here to serve. So we would love to hear from you. So if you want to follow up regarding anything that we've discussed today, please shoot me an email. I'll be happy to direct you to some other resources in the community, and to also expound on things that we've covered today in the panel. Have a great day, everyone, and I hope that you enjoyed the seminar. Thank you.